In part 3 of the 2013 Kane Opponent Series, we're going to talk about the team that, to be quite honest, we shouldn't be playing, but they are on the schedule, and that's the Savannah State Tigers, who come into Sun Life Stadium on September 21st off the bye week after the Florida game. Now here's what you need to know about the Tigers. They started football back in 1915, so they've been around for almost 100 years. Now they just recently hired a new head coach in Ernest Wilson III, who became the 24th head coach in their history. Now he comes over from fellow MEAC school Hampton, where he was their offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. I'm sure this was asked of Wilson during their interview process, and it's a good question to ask. What do you do when you don't know what to do? Put that in perspective, folks. The Tigers can only go up, because they have won more than 2 games in a season only once since 1999. They finished 2012 with their 3rd straight 1-10 season, and they were ranked among the 10 worst teams in the FCS. That's the Football Championship Subdivision, in rushing offense, in total offense, in scoring offense, in rushing defense, and scoring defense. Folks, that's all that needs to be said right there about Savannah State. But with the hire of Wilson III, perhaps it might be the spark needed for their athletics program there. Now they had a nice year with their baseball team, winning the MEAC tournament and going to the NCAA regionals before they get knocked out by Florida State and Tallahassee. Also, they've had several track and field athletes compete in the past year's NCAA championships. The men's basketball team has been to the postseason the last 2 years. Last year losing to East Carolina in the CollegeInsider.com tournament by 166-65. But let's remind everybody, the big attention getter in any program is football, but especially in the South. And as their athletic director Sterling Seward Jr. pointed out to Donald Heath in the Savannah Morning News recently, we're in the South, and football has to be successful. That's the challenge for that program, scheduling teams that they know will beat them easily. See Oklahoma State last year and FSU. I mean, come on. They're going to take a beating and get paid for it too. I mean, not a bad deal if you look at it. Now, let's look at a few players that they do have to keep an eye on. I mean, offensively, you have senior wide receiver Simon Haywood, who made their conference first team, while Dylan Cook, wide receiver, and tight end Chris Drummond were named to their conference 3rd team. Hayward's 5'11", 185 in 2012 had 44 receptions for 751 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's a native of Savannah, and he comes into his senior year with 116 career receptions for 1,381 yards and 8 touchdowns. But he was also named to the first team preseason All-MEAC team by College Sports Madness this year. And he's also on their watch list for the College Football Performance Award, the FCS Wide Receiver Award. Okay, that award is given annually to the top wide receiver in the FCS. Now, Hayward's one of 34 players on the watch list, which is pretty impressive. Now, as for Cook, he's a senior from Hiram, Georgia, 6'2", 190 pounds. He caught 37 balls last year for 491 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, as for Drummond, who's out of D.C., 6'5", 215, he caught 21 passes for 318 yards and a touchdown. Now, there's nothing much to write home about on either of those two, but clearly their best receiver is Hayward. Defensively, you have senior defensive back John Wilson, who was named to their conference All-Second team, and senior Micah Blunt, who was on their D-line, was named to their conference 3rd team defense. Now, Wilson's a native of Athens. I don't know how Georgia missed him. 5'10", 175 pounds. He had 68 tackles in 2012. Only 3 of those tackles were for losses. However, he had 4 interceptions and broke up 7 passes, and he blocked the kick. Now, Blunt's a big boy at 6'6", 225, but only 225 out of Stone Mountain, Georgia. Okay? But that's pretty light for a tall frame. He played in 9 games last year and had 37 tackles, 4 of those for loss, and 2.5 sacks. So again, the defense, this is nothing to write home about for them. Now, let me close by saying this about Savannah State. They only received 1 first-place vote. Come on, that's not surprising. They were fixed to finish 11th in the MEAC. Okay, considering how terrible they've been in recent years, nothing. I don't expect anything to change right in Wilson's first year. Expect another terrible season in Savannah. Okay, that's really not much else to say about them. So in part 4 of the series, I will talk about a team that has made some pretty big noise this offseason, and that's the South Florida Bulls. See you in part 4.